So we're recording. So Dustin, when I go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, the show's gonna start. So get all your drinks out. Get out. You ready?
I was born ready. I'm waiting for this for 5 years.
Setenta Nueve.
Setenta Nueve.
Setenta.
Tenta.
Say.
Say.
I'm not telling you say.
I was like, I'm fucking saying it, dude.
Oh, we're keeping that.
God damn it. Setenta Nueve. Wait, is that right? Okay.
Hold on. Yeah. Fuck it. We're just starting the show. What up, everybody? What's going on? This is the me, myself, and I am Mike Betancourt here at Weed and Wairika here finally. And the microphone keeps going around, and it's just still going. And I don't know how long I'm going to keep this up, but I'm just going to keep this up because I have to until I run out of ideas. And I'm just going to keep going. I got to keep going louder and sweat and blood and tears and just keep going. All right, I'm done. I'm done.
That's the voice that made my dad think, who's the asshole?
Oh, that's hilarious. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is a very special Me, Myself, and I podcast episode because I am here in the great town of Weed, actually Lake Shanista. Did I say it right? Shastina.
Well, it's the same place. Weed in Lake Shastina, it's weed. But Lake Shastina is like the people that are rich. And so they were like, we're going to put a gate up and just call it Lake Shastina.
Shastina.
Yeah.
I always say Shanista.
Yeah. You
And
said it like 5 times last
I
night.
did.
And this guy was like, yeah, I've never heard of that. And he's lived in Siskiyou County his whole life.
Shanista.
Shastina.
Shastina.
It's like Mount Shasta. Shastina.
Got it. Why do I keep saying Shatina?
I don't know.
It sounds like a sassy black woman.
It does.
Girl, you going to Lake Shastina? You going to Lake Shastina, motherfucker?
Sounds like the type of person that'd be like, you're getting on my last nerve. Was that racist? That seemed racist.
By the way, ladies and gentlemen, this is Dustin Wood, fellow comedian. He booked me over here. We were in Wairika last night, and tonight we're at the golf resort, Lake Shastina. There we go. I'll say it again. Lake Shastina.
Nailed it.
One more time so I can get it right. Lake Shastina.
Say Nueve. Something. I already forgot.
Okay. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, this is Dustin Wood, fellow comedian. He's been doing comedy for 5 years. Also, he is a former professional wrestler. Him and I been trying to we met like almost 5 years ago.
Yeah, we met like 5 years ago through Chad Beals, and he was like, he's someone you got to book, and I was like, yeah, I already know who he is. Like, I was a fan of yours before Chad, but like, I always thought that there were like different levels of comedians throughout SAC and LA, and so like, no offense to Chad, but like, I didn't find videos of Chad online. I found videos of you online. And so to me, there was this weird thing of like, Mike Betancourt, but to Chad, you're just like a fellow comedian that he knows. But to me, it would be like running into the guy at the grocery store and he goes, yeah, I know Robin Williams. And so it was like, what? I was so excited to like, and he gave me your phone number. And I remember I treated it almost like like when you get a girl's number, I was like, I can't call right away. Like you would know that I got your number or that I'd had it for 3 days before calling. It was super creepy, dude. I basically have a hair doll of you. It's bad.
A hair doll? Mm-hmm. Can I have the hair?
No. Okay, I worked hard on it.
What kind of hair is it?
I feel like I'm revealing too much too early.
It's not early enough. So tell us about your wrestling career before you got into stand-up. We're going to talk about First of all, Dustin is a guy that lives up here. He truly loves stand-up comedy. And everybody's been telling me, Chad was telling me, all these comics, Mike, you got to go up there. You got to go up there. And Dustin and I were trying for so long, for 5 years, we've been trying to get booked up here or get me up here to headline. And it's just, my schedule, his schedule, and it just didn't happen. But we developed a really fun, awesome phone I was his phone pal. We were phone buddies, and then we just developed this awesome relationship. Then I found out that he was in wrestling, and I was like, holy shit, you're my best friend now. So tell me about your wrestling career, and then we'll talk about why you got into stand-up. So when did you start wrestling?
So when my senior year in high school, they had this thing called the senior project, and it was a project you worked on all year. You had to write a paper, and then you had to do a speech, and then the last part at the end of the year was you had to do a physical project, a physical manifestation of whatever your topic was. And so a big thing in the news was kids mimicking pro wrestling moves and like killing their little brother, like in bedrooms and stuff. And so I wrote the paper about that. I did a speech about it, and then it came to the part like the physical manifestation. And I told my friend Darren, I was like, we should just put on a match for our classroom. And I was like, a lot of them weren't wrestling fans, so it would blow their mind of like, why is the like funny fat kid fighting the quarterback?
That's awesome. Yeah, that's such a cool thing just to visualize right now. The underdog beating up the all-American hero.
But then like we tried to switch it because I was gonna be the underdog, and then I got crowned prom king 2 weeks before the match.
Oh, that just ruins all of it.
So we did this thing where I got made prom king, and then my best friend Darren, who I was gonna wrestle, they lost the state championship, so it switched on us. And so we decided we did this assembly where all the classes were there in the gym, and the teacher went up and was like, we were going to show a short video presentation of Dustin's wrestling, but because it's so violent, we're not going to be able to show it for insurance reasons. And
damn, they must have got pissed.
Well, it's part of the plan. Then my music hit, and I came out and I grabbed the mic from her.
What was your song?
It was Shipping Up to Boston by Dropkick Murphys.
Boom, boom.
Yeah. Yeah.
Boom, boom.
Just the most like cliche, hey, I'm white and Irish kind of song. But I eventually changed it to No Leaf Clover from Metallica. How's that one go? I've not, like, it's all orchestras, and I'm not good at making, like, you could be like a beatboxer. Like last night you did that like 9 times on stage where you did that.
I know, it felt annoying after watching the video.
Awesome. It was awesome. It sounded like I never even seen Magic Mike, and then you did the song for Magic Mike, and I was like, oh, that's the Magic Mike song.
That's My Pony by Genuine.
Oh, see. Well, it's okay. I just revealed way too much. So I grabbed the mic from my teacher, and she's like, what are you doing? And I knew I had like creative license to be mean to a teacher in front of students, which I knew would sell this whole thing. They'd be like, this is insane. He's taking over the assembly. And so I grabbed the mic, and I was like, she was a really short lady. I was like, you got to be this tall to talk to me. And I pushed her away.
Nice.
And then I started doing a promo where we feud with a team called Mount Shasta Bears. They're the next town over, right? And so I walked in, and I had this fake championship belt because there's supposed to be a title on the line. And I go, I think it's sad that the only champion this school's ever had is me. And I was like, but I know how you guys can be champions. It's easy. It's a 1-step process. You got to transfer to Mount Shasta. And people started throwing stuff at me from the audience. And then I was like, you guys don't hate me. You want to be me. I'm prom king. I went to prom with the hottest girl at school. And was like throwing all this shit at me.
Oh, that's such a heel move.
It was so cool. Like, and then I was like, I'm going to call out the biggest dog in this yard. I'm going to kick your ass right here in front of everybody. And my best friend Darren stood up, and everyone was like, ooh, because everyone knew we were like best friends. And I was like, haven't you been doing a lot of losing lately? Because they just...
Oh, nice.
And so then I was like, you know what? I feel like you've been beaten enough. Let's choose somebody else. And it basically being like a pussy heel. And then this tiny guy stood up, and I was like, you. And I brought him out, and I beat the living shit out of him. I remember I did like Brock Lesnar's F5 to him. I power bombed him. He's doing all this crazy stuff to him.
Did you train before this?
No, which is so dangerous, okay? Yeah. I'll get to the training after this. So it was so dangerous and ridiculous, and don't ever do it, anybody that's listening to this.
Wait, you did it. Was there a mat? Or
yeah, they had like gymnastic mats. So like he wasn't
gymnastic mats?
Yeah.
You did an F5 on a gymnastic mat?
And a power bomb.
Oh my God.
And this kid was a skateboarder, so he was like, yeah, you do whatever, man. He was like, he's like, I've broken my femur 3 times. It's cool. And I was like, all right. That's what I remember when I had him up for the F5.
Did you know how to do the F5 properly?
No. So that's why I was like, I'm going to just throw this guy as far as...
Why don't you just describe to the listeners what an F5 is?
So F5 is basically like, you know how firemen would pick someone up on their shoulders to carry them out of like a burning building? It starts that way, and then you grab one of their legs from underneath, and you flip them so that they sandwich right on their face. So basically... you're taking them and just chucking them on their face, like spinning them 360 degrees. And so this guy was so tiny. He had to have been like 85 pounds. And I threw him as far as I could. He went to the other end of the map and he smacked. And this guy was so good at like bumping, which is like wrestling terms for learning how to fall. Like he was so good at like dispersing all his weight because he was a skateboarder that he hit face first, smacked up to a standing position, and fell onto his back. And it
was nice.
So cool. And the crowd was just like, what? And I went to pin him, and then I pulled his shoulder up like I was being a dick, like I can beat him anytime I want. My friend Darren ran up behind me, hit me with a rock bottom, and then put the kid on top of me.
Oh, wow.
Counted to 3 count, and the crowd went nuts. And I was hooked from then. I was like, I made them react that way. It was the coolest feeling in the world.
That was your very first audience reaction.
Yeah, my very first one. Besides, I told you I used to do talent shows, and I won like 2 years in a row doing the least amount of performing you can do. I went up and I was like, I'm an impressionist, but all I did was like 2 words of Eddie Murphy from Shrek. So I just go, damn, Shrek. And that's all I would do. And then there were these like girls that did this like interpretive dance that was like 5 minutes, but I would win just going, damn, Shrek. That was more like...
So you only did like a minute of impressions and you win the talent show?
Not even a minute. Like introducing me took longer than my... They'd be like, all right, here's Dustin. He's going to do some impressions. He's promised he's not going to cuss. All right, Dustin, go. And I go, damn, Shrek. Thank you. And just walk off.
That's fantastic. That's hilarious.
But besides that, the wrestling thing was like my first one. And so I was hooked. I'd graduated high school. My buddy went to Chico State. And so I went down to Chico to visit him. And WWE was having a house show there. So we went.
What year was this?
2005. In fact, I saw one of Eddie Guerrero's last 5 matches.
Oh, man, that must have been amazing.
I got to meet him. He went to my brother was the supervising chef at Rolling Hills Casino, and all the wrestlers stopped there to eat on their way out of town, and I was there seeing my brother Randy. And Randy Orton was there, JBL, Rey Mysterio, without a mask, which my brother made such an ass out of himself. He walks up to take their orders, and he looks at Rey Mysterio, and he goes, where's your mask? And he goes... I'm eating, man. And he's like, you're not wearing your mask. Isn't that against the law? And he's like, no. And he's like, is it against the law in Mexico? And Rey Mysterio's just being super nice. And he's like, can I get a steak, man? Like,
poor Rey.
Stop bothering me.
Seriously, poor Rey. So what was it like meeting Eddie Guerrero?
I told him the thing, and we talked about this last night about how comics will come up to you and be like, I want to be a stand-up comedian. And most of the times it's like, I want to do it, but I'm not going to do it. Like, I'm the funniest friend or whatever. I went up to him and I was like, I want to be a pro wrestler. And I was this, like, 5'11", chunky kid. And he was just like, all right, go to a school. And I went, oh, no, I should probably tell you about my school assembly. Like, I didn't kill a kid with an F5, so I think I'm ready. And he's like, yeah, no, go to a wrestling school. No one's going to take you seriously unless you get trained. And so we went to the WWE show after that, and when we were walking to the car, there was a flyer on the car for a local, like, indie company called MWF, Main Event Federation Wrestling, I think it was. And the main event was Brian Cage versus Chris Kanyon.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I met a guy named Mike Shoop who...
Why don't you tell people who Brian Cage is?
Well, Brian Cage right now is the Impact Wrestling heavyweight champion, and he was on Lucha Underground as Cage, and wrestles all throughout Mexico. And he was actually the guy that ended up training me.
So he's a very, very popular wrestler that you met.
Well,
I know who he is, but I'm just saying listeners that don't.
Yeah, he's super popular. He's one of the bigger names, and he's one of those names on the, like, I guess he's not technically on the independent scene because he's on TV every week, but like a lot of people don't qualify a successful pro wrestler until they're like in WWE or whatever. Brian's one of those guys that has been able to be successful and mainstream without ever having to step foot in a WWE like ring.
If you're paying your taxes on the art that you love, I think you're making it.
Oh yeah, and I can tell, like, he was in the developmental system for a while too, and they made him like dress up like Wolverine. Like apparently one guy was like, he looks like Hugh Jackman, so they made him cut his hair like Wolverine, and he wore these like yellow tights like the old 90s cartoon Wolverine, and I think they named him Chris Logan.
Oh.
And but he even made that work. Like he made a finishing move that he still has, he calls it Weapon X.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so like it was cool, but it was just, to me it was surreal. Like when I met Brian, I remember he had these tights that didn't fit because he didn't have enough muscle, but he ordered large tights even though he was like a medium body, because he always had that mindset of like, I'm gonna be the biggest goddamn guy in the room. And now when you look at him,
oh, he's a monster.
He looks like the side of beef that Rocky punched in the Rocky movie. He's just huge. It's like a side of beef with a faux hawk, and it's cool. Like
I'm a machine.
I'm a machine. It's so funny that like I was watching Lucha Underground, and to me it's like Brian. Like I remember him, like he played this prank on me when I was my first day of training, where he was like, you got to go to all the main event wrestlers and you got to ask if they need oil, like baby oil. And I remember I was like halfway through like my third wrestler when I noticed him laughing, and I was like, I've been rubbing oil on grown men when I don't need to.
Well, so where'd you train at?
In Chico. So like,
was it a good school?
Yeah, well, it wasn't even necessarily a school. Like what they did is, before, I was traveling once a month for just a weekend of training, and I had to take a bus because I didn't have a car. So I would take a bus to Chico, and I would train all weekend. We would train before the shows and after the shows. So I would help set up the ring, set up all the chairs, and then we would train. And like Brian trained me, but also this guy named Dio trained me, and another wrestler named Draven. And it was awesome. I feel weird because I only wrestled for like 4 years.
Right.
And I never really made it past like promoting my own shows or anything like that. And so I feel bad sometimes saying like, yeah, Brian Cage trained me, because like I don't want to like diminish Brian's name in wrestling any, because I wasn't a very good wrestler. I was better at pissing people off and getting the crowd to cheer when getting the people to cheer when I got my ass kicked. So, but I did it for 4 years. My last wrestling match, I got a level 3 concussion.
Damn, how'd you do that?
So I was wrestling in this company called, it was the company that Roddy Piper like got his start in, NWA CCW, and it was televised, and they were filming in this. Half of it was a bar and half of it was a pizza place for kids. So like the way they marketed it is like, get drunk here while your kids eat pizza here. And they always hired magic shows and then pro wrestling. And so we were there doing a TV taping for like local Portland TV. And we were the only two me and my friend Todd, we drove from Bend, Oregon to there. And we were the only two guys that were under like 45. Like everybody was super old. This one guy had this giant tattoo of Colossus on his back from X-Men. And I go, what's your name? And he goes, Metal Man. And I go, you have Colossus tattooed on your back. Why don't you call yourself Colossus? And he goes, I don't want to get sued when I get famous. And I went,
damn.
Well, you're like 60, dude.
Wait. The wrestler was old?
Yeah, he was super old. Had Colossus tattooed on his.
You know what that reminds me of? That when you're saying like the old guy waiting for his fame, he says he doesn't want to get sued. You know what that kind of reminds me of? Do you remember Beyond the Mat?
Yes.
Remember that old guy that kept training, kept jumping up on the trampoline? He's like, I gotta stay fit. You never know it's gonna be my time.
Exactly. And I think he was just a ref or something too. That guy. But like,
you know, man. Sometimes the illusion, thinking that you're gonna Yeah, you know what?
Have it though. You gotta have it. Like it's. I'm a firm believer, and I believe you are too. Just in our conversations of positive thinking will bring positive results.
I agree with that, but also if you're in your 60s and you want to still be a wrestler,
Yeah. No, absolutely. Especially in a job that's like, like you look at a pro wrestler now, like Dolph Ziggler. He's still a young guy, but if you see him walk,
yeah.
sad, like his body's totally beaten up.
So imagine in your 60s trying to wait to become famous or something like that from wrestling. It's
And it was like to say that to me while we were in a broom closet / locker room while kids were running around doing a pizza. The only thing I remember before my concussion is it was me wrestling my.
the only thing you can remember before your concussion.
Well, the only thing I remember before my concussion is the front row was this little girl's birthday party, and she had this happy birthday tiara, and I grabbed it and broke it in half because I thought that it was like one that the pizza place gave out, but it was.
Damn.
Like this $30 tiara that her dad bought her.
Why are you spending a $30 tiara?
Apparently she wanted it, and I snapped it, and so she started bawling, crying, and she was crying.
Wait, she watched the wrestling show?
She was in the front row at the wrestling show. I did it during my entrance, and so she, so she's just bawling her eyes out, and I'm like, I was raised to be very like polite and Catholic, so I'm like trying to be mean, but I keep looking over at her like, please stop crying. I'm so sorry. Like, it was so bad.
What did the dad do?
No, he was cracking up, but he was also in the bar. So, like, because this was that bar pizza place. So
How far was the bar from the show?
So literally, it was like 100. Like, the ring was 18 by 18. The room that we were in was maybe 22 by 22. Like, there was very little space. There was only one row all around us of chairs. And they were right up against the ring, so we couldn't like fly out of the ring, which is what caused my concussion. But and then there was this big mesh cage that separated one wall, which the bar was on the other wall, so they could like look through the cage and look in on their kids, right?
Oh, wow.
It was just it was the most hillbilly Chuck E. Cheese in the world, basically.
Hillbilly Chuck E. Cheese.
It was like
That might be the title of the
I
show.
think it was actually called like Hey Yucky Cheese. Like it was so bad, dude.
Wow. So you were you were wrestling the old guy?
No, I was wrestling my buddy TJ Legend, who was like, he's 235 pounds, but he's 235 pounds of dead weight. Like when you have to lift this guy up, it's like lifting a bag of sand, And so he throws me to the outside, and I move everybody out of the way. So I got this little like 5-foot space, and he runs and backflips out of the ring, but I'm trying to get this kid out of the way.
The one with the tiara?
No. She was still crying on the other side. Just this kid that ran up to me, and I was pushing him out of the way because there was a guy coming. And so I thought I timed it where I could push him, look up, and catch Todd. I pushed the guy, look up, and his lower back is on my head. And
Wow.
Is my head between his 235 pounds and the concrete. So I wrestled for like 7 more minutes. Don't remember a single thing. The match finishes. We get into the back, and the owner goes, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine." Blah! And I threw up everywhere, and he goes, "We got a concussion. Take him to the hospital."
Damn, he knew right off the bat.
Right away. I just threw up all over him, and he was like, "He's got a concussion."
Wow.
The coolest thing, when I came to in the hospital, they had this envelope, like all the wrestlers like threw in money for me, which I thought was really cool. Like it was just a nice thing of like, oh, we got hurt, like let's give him something extra. I guess.
That's cool. Do you still stay in touch with the wrestlers?
Yeah, like I'm really good friends with Todd, the guy I just talked about, and Mike Shoop. He wrestles as Shoop Shellhammer all throughout California and like Oregon and Washington. He is amazing. This guy, I'm not even kidding, looked like when he started wrestling and we started wrestling, he was maybe 110 pounds. The tiniest guy you could ever think of, right? He has done nothing but discipline himself, go to the gym every single day, made sure he ate right. This guy is huge now. He is like a big muscular bastard now. And he was always good in the ring. He was always good at like getting sympathy or being that small. He was great at being a heel. Like he had this great character that he still kind of has now of like Napoleon complex. Like when he looks in a mirror, he sees Brock Lesnar. But what he really is like, X-Pac, like that size guy. And so it's such a cool character because he can make people hate him so, like effortlessly.
So after the concussion, how long did you wrestle after that? Like how many years?
Never. That was my last.
You
time.
quit. You were done after that.
Well, because we went to the doctor, and then the doctor was like, "What are these things on your back?" And I was talking to you last night. I was born with a rare condition called blue rubber bleb Nueve syndrome, and I had all these blue bumps on my back. And the doctor was like, "What are these?" And
How old were you when you realized that?
when my parents found them, I was 8, but I was born with it apparently. I had like a little blue dot on the side of my face the day I was born, and the doctor was like, "It's a birthmark," but it wasn't. It was one of these blebs. It's blue bump. And so when after I got to concussion, the doctor was like, "What are these on your back?" And I was like, "Oh, it's this thing called blue rubber bleb." And he like finished my sentence. He goes, "Nueve syndrome?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "You realize that if one of those popped, just one, it would cause a chain reaction to the rest, and you would bleed out. You would die."
Holy shit!
And
Could you imagine if you had a hardcore match?
dude, I had a match a month before that we had a chair wrapped in barbed wire, and I took 6 different bumps on my back on it.
How did it not pop?
I have no idea. Like, it's literally like the grace of God, because I did thumbtacks that night. We did the barbed wire, which was like chicken wire, but after 3 or 4 hits, it would start to splinter. So it became barbed wire.
What did your dad think about this when you told him that?
My mom and dad did not want me to wrestle from day one.
Of course, that's.
They knew not just the effects of pro wrestling from being a fan entire life. They knew about my condition, you know? And so when they were always just like, I remember telling them, I was like, I'd rather live in it being a stupid kid, you don't think, you know? And I was like, I'd rather live a year doing what I want to do than an entire life of regretting that I didn't do it, you know? And so, but then when the doctor was like, "Yeah, you could have died any time you wrestled." And he's like,
Holy crap.
"You could have died practicing bumps." And so it was this weird wake-up call, and it was depressing because I was done with wrestling, so I went to theater. I've always wanted to be a comic, like since I was 8, but I thought you had to live in LA or New York to be a comic.
That's what I thought too. Absolutely.
Because anytime you seen a special, it was, New York or LA, or sometimes it would be like DC or whatever. The first exposure I had to stand-up comedy is my half-brother came to town, and he had a Sony Walkman, and he left it. And so I went through all his cassette tapes one night, and there was Eddie Murphy's Raw.
How does he sound?
Damn, Shrek.
That's what he said during Eddie Murphy's Raw.
That was the only thing on the tape. He was like, "Damn, Shrek, thank you."
So you were listening to Eddie Murphy Raw and you were hooked, huh?
Yeah, 8 years old, in my room with headphones at like midnight, trying not to laugh so I don't wake up my super strict Catholic parents that wouldn't want me listening to Eddie Murphy. And it was the first time I was like, dude, listen to these people. Like, I would listen to the crowd reactions more than the jokes, because I didn't get a lot of the jokes. And I remember we were very like lived check by check. So like I remember one time I started mimicking his "you can't have ice cream because your family's on welfare." And I remember my dad like smacking me going, "You don't make fun of that shit, man. Like, we could be on welfare if I didn't have a job." And it was a good lesson of like, that was my first lesson of like, oh, some things are okay to joke about in certain situations and some aren't, like I was learning through life basically. But I knew I wanted to do it since 8, but I thought you had to live in LA and New York. So I did pro wrestling. It didn't work out. I'm living at home now, back in weed. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to go to community college, and I'm going to take every theater and speech class they have, and TV class and radio, and I'm going to get so comfortable talking in front of people that when I move to LA or New York, it's not going to be this big learning curve for me. So I started doing theater, and then I got my degree in theater arts. And
oh, you did? Nice.
Yeah, I was getting cast in all these plays, and I got cast to play this autistic kid, and I took it so serious where, like, I went to all the special needs classes, and, like...
Good, you did your research.
I did all of it, and I won an award for it, which was super cool. And then there was some talk about Southern Oregon University wanted me to possibly be a part of their Shakespeare program, and that's when my disease started to spread, and I lost all my teeth. And then all of a sudden, all my castings dried up unless it was like Deliverance the musical. So
Could you imagine Deliverance the musical? Da-da-dang, dang, 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 dang. You've got a pretty mouth, boy. You got a pretty mouth, boy. Let's sing it together. You've got a pretty mouth, boy.
Mr. Beatty will be fucked in the ass.
Fuck him in the ass now. Pound it hard. Now. Okay, so after the Deliverance the musical,
Yeah, I just everything dried up. I was depressed. I was staying at home.
How old were you?
This was 5 years ago. Okay. So my best friend brings me a flash drive, and on it he took all these clips from
Who's your best friend?
Darren Barberi. He's my best friend since second grade. And,
Does he still live up here?
no, he's actually getting his engineering degree. He was in the military. He was in the Army. Don't hold it against him.
I don't. My uncle was in the Army. I only hold against it if you're in the Air Force.
Oh, no, he was in the Air Force. He was in the Air Force. I was confusing him. One of my brothers it was Mike Shoop, the wrestler, was talking about. He went into the military, and then there was like a physical thing. He couldn't get past No, Darren was in the Air Force. He wants to be. Oh no,
That's hilarious.
but Darren is the coolest, like most supportive guy. Wrestling day one, he was like, "Yeah, I'll wrestle you," and he didn't know anything about wrestling. Comedy day one, yeah, I'll help you write stuff. Like he's the coolest guy, and he's the one that introduced me to you.
So so go ahead and tell everybody what happened.
Okay, so I'm depressed. I'm at home. I don't know what to do. I can't get cast in anything. I thought I found my thing with wrestling. It didn't work out. I thought I found my thing in acting. It didn't work out. And so I'm like, why? At some point, the common denominator in all these failures is me. What am I doing wrong? And so he brings me this flash drive, and it's all these clips from YouTube and like I don't know, like any like video streaming sites, mostly YouTube, and it was all stand-up comedy. But he was showing me. He goes, "Look, most of these are in Sacramento." He's like, "These ones are in Chico. These ones are in He's like, "This guy's in Medford." He's like, "You're not far from comedy." And he goes, and a lot of these guys are like putting on their own shows. And so I watched these clips religiously. Like I watched them every single day. It was like a discipline to me. And one of them, like I said, I still remember vividly, was you. I remember like the first few clips I saw, one was Alex Elkin, one was Carl Lee, one was Dan Cummings, and Steve Maison, and you. Yeah, and so I made a list of names. I was like, I'm going to work with these guys, or I'm going to try to be on the level that these guys are. Like, this is the kind of stand-up comedy I want to do.
Why don't you describe the video that you saw?
Yeah, so it was, I still remember it vividly. It was, you were doing a show, and it was like it looked like a tavern or like a bar, and you could see the camera angle, you could see like the first 4 tables, and 3 of them were just being attentive, like stand-up comedy audience, and one guy had his back to you and was playing Connect 4, the like kids game, and like you could hear him like every time he slotted something, it was like and you're like trying to do stand-up comedy. And I remember watching that thinking like, oh, he's gonna rip this guy apart. Like I thought it was gonna be like one of those Steve Hofstetter videos on YouTube where he's just like, hey prick, and then just goes into the guy. But you did something that I was like, this guy's a genius, because instead of getting mad at him or being like, can you put that away, or this is my job, or I thought it was going to be one of those, do I go to your job and kick the dick out of your mouth type of thing. And so you go, I want to play. And you grab the game, and the guy that had his back turned to you, and you brought him on stage, and you sat him down on a chair, and you gave him the Connect 4. And you go, all right, you think your next move, I'm going to tell jokes. And you turn to the crowd, and you start doing your set. And then every time you got a laugh, you'd be like, put one in, that's me. And it was like, oh, awesome. You were like playing Connect 4, but using laughs to put people.
Yeah. And that was like spur of the moment, too.
So, that was like such a wake-up call for me, where I was like, oh, my God, like, you can go in with material, but that might not be the show you're doing that night. You know, it was such a like, a lesson I could have learnned last night. If I learned it 5 years ago, I don't know why I didn't implement it last night.
You did fine last night. It was a weird crowd that maybe they're all strung out.
I don't know. I gotta say though, like, that moment is like the Mike Betancourt moment in my head. Like that's
the Mike Betancourt moment.
Yeah, the Connect 4 thing. Like that's the first thing like I would think of before I knew you, right? And so to see you implement the same tricks last night was the coolest thing, because you and I had lunch yesterday. we're talking about Richard Gere and the hamster in his butt, as people do when they eat lunch, and
Of course, we have a nice steak and then talk about gerbils going up people's asses.
exactly normal comedian conversation, and you implemented it into your act that night, and it was so last night that it was so seamless that nobody else noticed a magic trick you just performed in front of everybody, because it was a trick for one, basically. I'm the only one that knows. We had that conversation earlier, to the point that I turned to the owner and I went, we talked about this at lunch today, and he just made a joke out of it, and he was like, wait, that's not one of his regular jokes? I was like, I don't think so. I'm the one that brought up Richard Gere, so it's not like he could have brought something up to make me bring it up. It was so crazy. And so
You know what? Yeah, the reason why I brought that up, because A, it was fresh in my mind, and B, I trust myself. So when I'm trusting myself, and the guy looked like Richard Gere,
Exactly
and we had that conversation. So in my mind, while I was saying, I'm like, oh, dude, we just had this conversation. Let's go with this Richard Gere thing, and my mind was going like a mile a minute, just thinking of other things about Richard Gere and the gerbil up his ass.
Well, like, and another great thing is, like, I mentioned that there were certain audience members that we've heard have extramarital proclivities, swingers, and I love that you were like, it was almost like you were doing a show for the audience, but you're also doing a discreet show for me, because I'm sitting in the back trying not to laugh too hard because I'm by the camera filming everything, and I hear you go, all right, so what, are you single? Oh, is this your first date? And then you point to them and you're like, you're swingers, right? And I'm like, oh no. And the owner's cracking up because he's like, does he know they're actual swingers? It's so awesome.
Hey, it's fun. It's fun. That's what comedy is. It's fun. So we're going a little bit longer. Okay, no, it's fine. It's usually a 30-minute show, and I'm really glad that we're going longer. But let's continue about your comedy. So you were watching the videos, and then what made you decide to get up on stage from there?
Okay, so I made this list, which now when I look at it, it looks like a hit list. It's so creepy because I've like crossed off names of people I've worked with. So it's like, and it's all just like different letters, and it almost like the only thing that would make it creepier is if it was made out of like newspaper letters cut out. It's so creepy. But I've gotten to work with every single name except two. Well, now one, because I worked with you last night. The only other one that's left is Dan Cummins, right? But I wanted to do an open mic, and so I came up with 5 minutes, and then I knew I was going to do it on Saturday. So on Friday, to get in the comedy mood, I went to Chadwick's in Medford, which is an incredible comedy venue. It's run by this guy Carl Lee, who I watched him perform 3 different nights hosting, and he did 3 completely different 30-minute sets.
Yeah, he's amazing.
He is a juggernaut. He's a beast on stage, you know?
Definitely a juggernaut.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It was insane, and I was just like, wow, because I remember thinking hosting was like the shitty end of the stick.
Well, you know what? For the longest time, hosting was known for that. But back in the day, when comedy was at its heyday, it was always the headliners that would host. Like David Letterman used to run a show, and he would host. He would do 20, 30 minutes, bring up 2 features, and then he headlines. He would host and headline his own show.
Well, that's like, it changed my mind watching Carl that first time. I was like, oh shit, like you can still contribute to the show the same way a closer, headliner, or feature does. And so that first show, it was Carl Lee, and then it was Alex Elkin, who was already on my list, and I'd only seen clips of, and I listened to one of his albums on iTunes. And here he is, like, in person, which, like, I nerd out about comedy so much. Like, I'm very, like I said before, positive thinking means positive results. 5 years ago, I was watching a guy play Connect 4 on stage. Now I'm doing a podcast with them, and I'm performing all weekend with them. Like, it blows my mind.
You can call me me.
No.
I'm him?
You're him. It's like Jesus. Capital H. Our Grace, Mike Betancourt. And so Alex goes up, he does his set, he does 40 minutes, I'm just dying laughing, and I'm that stupid new into comedy nerd where I like bought all of his merchandise, and then I go, hey, I'm thinking of doing my first open mic tomorrow. The thing we've talked about before where it's like, okay, sure.
So you went to Eddie Guerrero. I'm thinking about becoming a wrestler.
Yeah,
and now you're coming to a comic.
And now I'm going to a comic saying the same thing, right? Eddie went, go to school. Alex took me to school. He sat me down, and he was like, what are you going to do? And I told him. And I remember the first thing I was like, I'm going to do a joke about Justin Bieber. And he goes, yeah, don't do that. He goes, what are you going to talk about? What are you going to say that's different from any other person that goes up and talks about Justin Bieber or the Kardashians or Trump or whatever, you know? And I was like, well, shit, I don't know. He's like, you better figure it out if you're going up tomorrow. And he's like, and you're going up tomorrow. Like, he made it very, like, the choice is out of your hands. Because I told him, I was like, I already told people that I'm going to be doing this. And he goes, then you got to do it. You promised them a show. So give them a show. So the next night, like, this is a stranger, basically. I'm a stranger walking up to a comedian that just traveled to do the show. He had his family with him. His wife was pregnant at the time. I bet all that Alex wanted to do was go back to his hotel room, unwind and go to bed. But he sat with me and did this and gave me pointers. He didn't have to do that, And so the next night, there's a bowling alley in my town that does a karaoke. It wasn't even an open mic. It was karaoke night. So I went and I signed up. I just wrote Aerosmith. And then I get up and they're like, all right, Dustin Wood is going to sing Aerosmith. And
I like your karaoke DJ voice.
It's exactly what his voice is.
Do it again.
All right, we got Dustin Wood coming up. He's going to be doing some Aerosmith.
Hey, everybody.
Yeah.
Hey, just want to let you know that we're going to be doing some Aerosmith right about now.
They always went like up and down.
That's what they always do. Now, pour some sugar on me.
Katrina's going to be doing some Gwen Stefani. So I go up and he's like, all right, what song you singing? And I was like, I'm not. So I was born with this rare disease. And I just go.
Damn, just hijacked the karaoke.
So the whole time people were just looking at me like, what the fuck is this guy doing? Afterwards,
that doesn't sound like Steven Tyler.
Yeah, right. And then so I do it and it's just a smattering of applause of like, what was that? And then I leave.
Did you get laughs?
Yeah, I got laughs, like, absolutely. Like, I'll never forget the first thing I ever said, and it's so Alex was like, say something that's true to you. So the first thing I said was, I know that my penis wishes it was on a better body than mine. I just don't have the heart to tell him that even on a better body, he'd still just be a really small penis. And I was like, he's like a high school athlete that's like at the top of his game and thinks he's going to be the best. And then for whatever reason is drafted to the Sacramento Kings.
Oh, you know what would be funny? Right when you said that, the nerdy penis, the first thing I thought was, you remember the movie Lucas?
Yes, exactly.
Your penis is a dead Corey Haim.
Oh my God. How'd you know my safe word? That's so great.
Corey Haim's your safe word?
So, I do that. I've actually done that joke with Mike Bibby from the Sacramento Kings in the crowd.
Oh, that's awesome. What'd he say?
He laughed. He was like promoting some gym or something. He laughed. Everybody else was doing that thing of like when you make fun of a transvestite in the crowd and everyone looks at the transvestite and be like, is it okay to laugh? Everyone was looking at Mike Bibby like, can we laugh? But he was the one laughing the hardest. He was super cool about it. Also, I watched Mike Bibby through his whole career and I always thought like, this guy, I'm taller than this guy. But it's because he's standing next to 7 feet giants.
Yeah.
So when I saw him, I was like, this guy's massive. He looked like Kurt Angle, just like a giant ball.
He's huge.
He's huge. So I did the karaoke thing. I did it the next, 5 karaoke nights. I did the same thing. Always Aerosmith. And the guy, every time, all right, doesn't just sing Aerosmith. Like, he never once thought, well, this is that guy that doesn't actually sing Aerosmith.
He's probably like, please sing Aerosmith.
Right?
Please.
I do remember one time he started playing that song from Armageddon. And I went, I'm not singing, man. And he just turned it off.
That's hilarious. Don't want to close my... I'm not singing that shit.
So finally, the owner of the bowling alley comes up to me and he goes, look, if I give you 30 minutes once a month, will you stop ruining karaoke night?
That's a classic. Because you know what would ruin karaoke? Karaoke.
Right? I know. I love that, people going up and singing Meatloaf drunk, I won't do that. was somehow more entertaining to them than me like doing 5 minutes of material.
Talking about Lucas Penis.
Yeah, yeah, Corey Haim.
Oh, that's awesome. And then you've been doing comedy for 5 years.
Yeah, I've been really lucky to be booked all over. I've gotten to work with all the people I wanted to work with, and I'm doing my comedy club debut in October, which I'm excited about. Laughs Unlimited. Jimmy Earl, he came and performed up here, and I asked him, because I'm stuck, like, I'm not stuck here, but like I care for my father and my family's here, and so like realistically, I should move to Sacramento or San Francisco and be going up every night. But I get it super insecure because I'm the only comedian here. So when Jimmy Earl was up, I was like, do you think I'm ready for Sacramento? And he was like, yeah, you're good, man. Don't call me sir. and then he kept his word, which in comedy is another thing I'm finding is kind of rare.
Yeah, there's a lot of pussies out there that are two-faced, and they're backstabbing, and they're little bitches, and he's talking about me, they're talking about me, so I'm not gonna book them, and whatever. But you've met some great people, and you know what, man, and this is me talking to other comics, and we all say the same thing, man. You truly love comedy, and this is what you're meant to do. And when you start traveling more, dude, you're gonna see big leaps and bounds. And it's going to be a wonderful thing, man, because this is you. This is your life. This is what you're meant to do. A lot of people are stumble upon. It's funny. I when I first started stand-up, I stumbled upon it. I never wanted to be a comic. I'm sure you never, but you've always wanted to be a comic. Wow. You've always wanted to have this life. When I was growing up, I always wanted to be like an 80s action star. Right. Yeah, like a Chuck Norris or I wanted to be a wrestler. I never accomplished that. And I stepped into when people say, "Oh, you want to be a comic? You should be funny. You're a comedian." I'm like, I don't want to. But this is in your blood. This is inside you. This is what's been brewing since you were 8 years old, and you're finally a comic. You had to go through these trials and tribulations in your life to finally be where you need to be, and now you're doing it. You're
That's like I read Chris Jericho's book, Pro Wrestler, and he talked about wrestling in Mexico showed him how to do a different match every night. Wrestling in Germany showed him how character is all that matters. And then wrestling in Japan, it's all about the moveset. And he was like, I got all these little ingredients all over to make myself the best possible wrestler to get hired by the big companies. And I feel like pro wrestling taught me to not improv, but always be ready to switch something up depending on a crowd. Acting taught me that come up with your material, but don't be beholden by it, And I feel like everything in my life has been little puzzle pieces building the picture of me eventually becoming a comedian,
And the cool thing about Dustin's journey is, as long as I've known him and we've been talking and staying in touch, he has made his dad famous on the internet. If you follow Dustin Woods at Adorkable Dustin Woods on Instagram, you will see that his dad is his own character, and it's fucking funny. It's brilliant. And I came all this way to meet your father, and I know we can't meet him because we're not allowed to meet the great Mr. Wood. And
last month we had Chad Beals here, and he was like, I want to meet your dad. And I went, yeah, my dad doesn't he wish he'd never met me. Like, he doesn't want to meet new people. Like, he's so sick of hearing of comedy and me going, hey, Dad, does this tagline work? And he goes, I don't give a fuck, man. Like, it's so, my dad is like Red from the 70s show. Yeah. So, like, I remember being younger. I remember watching that show, and he always calls his son dumbass. And my dad used to always call me stupid shit. And it would be like, because I would say some stupid shit. Like, I remember one time he was like, high school's almost over. Like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I'm reading some stuff about Buddhism, and I think I might, like, be a Jedi. Like, I think it could be real. And he went, you stupid shit. Get a job. And I was like, okay. But, like, I remember that stuff. My dad's an Irish Catholic, Vietnam vet. He was a boxer. He was a Pro Bowl rider. Like,
dude, he's hardcore.
He's a hardcore guy. And so, but the thing is like I write these things, and they're in the spirit of my father. But Chad was like, I want to meet your dad, and I was like, he doesn't want to meet. And then he was like, you know what? No one's ever really met your dad or seen your dad. And he's like, your dad didn't die a while ago, and you're just spraying him with Lysol. And still haven't covered.
God.
I'm like, Dad called me a stupid shit, right? Remember?
Oh, man. I think we're going to leave off that note. Well, Dustin, I'm so glad that we finally got a chance to work together yesterday. And today is day 2. I'm going to air this next week. But it's been a pleasure working with Dustin. And I look out for him, ladies and gentlemen, because he's coming. He's going to come. He's not that way, but he's going to be all over. You'll see him in competition. Not coming all over. God damn it. He will be on your television sets. He will be on your computer. He's going to come on your television sets. He's going to come on your computer. He's going to come on your phone. He's going to come in your ear. He's going to be all over the place like a seaman all over. But no, be prepared, ladies and gentlemen, because Dustin Wood is coming.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate that.
Dustin Wood's here. There, he's here.
I'm here.
So stay tuned, because you know what? The world will be is going to be prepared for him, and everyone's waiting for you. So all you gotta do is get in the car, and just go. And when you go, everyone's gonna know who you are. So I like to finish on a really awesome note. Damn, 50 minutes. This has been a fun podcast, my friend.
It went by fast.
Because you have great, interesting stories. All I've been doing is going,
We didn't even get into the stuff we were talking about yesterday about talking about. Like
what?
Haggard, all that crazy shit.
You know what? Maybe we could save it for Dustin Wood Part 2.
I'm all for it, man. Next time. Part 2, Merle Haggard. I may have killed a country music legend.
Amen. So this is how we leave on the Me, Myself, and I podcast. So get your fingers up like this. Okay? Just, no, like you're about to snap. Can you snap?
No.
You can't snap? Can you snap on that?
No.
You can't go like that?
Wait.
Can you do that?
What was that pathetic those are?
I do some weird... you heard of the salsa, right? At the end of every show, I do salsa.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so here we go. We're going to do the salsa. So pretend the music's playing right now. Here we go. You ready? No. Oh, wrong. He's coming everywhere. Anyway, here we go. Salsa!
Snap, salsa!
Snap, salsa!
Salsa, snap!
Snap the salsa!
Salsa!
Hey!